Thank you, Mr Speaker. To the Minister of Finance, does he agree with the OECD, who found in April this year that New Zealand is one of the few OECD countries with no comprehensive capital gains tax on any asset class, and that this favourable tax treatment of housing should be removed to lower house prices, lower wealth inequalities and level the playing field for saving and investment decisions?
The Honourable Bill English.
Mr Speaker, we do agree with them that New Zealand has no comprehensive capital gains tax, and generally we agree with their objectives, and we have chosen other means to achieve those objectives.
Dr Russel Norman.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Does he agree with John Wally from the New Zealand Manufacturers and Exporters Association?
Order.
Definitely an extra supplementary.
No, order. Dr Russel Norman.
Does he agree with John Wally from the New Zealand Manufacturers and Exporters Association, who said recently, quote, "A balanced tax system, including taxation on property, is needed so that capital is used to invest in revenue and job-generating businesses. If so, why does he continue with a tax system which has this bias for housing speculation?"
The Honourable Bill English.
Mr Speaker, I do remember agreeing with them once. Look, we share with Mr Wally the objective of moving this economy to an export-orientated economy built on higher savings and high-quality investment and high productivity. And the government has taken a number of very significant measures to achieve that, including major tax reform. In that context, we made the decision that there were other means of achieving a correction in the taxation of property other than a capital gains tax. And as I said, the big problem here is for the opposition to come up with a high enough rate of capital gains tax covering a broad enough base to pay for the very expensive other promises that they've made.
Dr Russel Norman.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Why does the Minister reject the advice from the tax working group that a capital gains tax excluding the family home would raise $4.5 billion a year, which was in their report, whereas on the other hand he's willing to accept their advice that a capital gains tax is too complicated? Why does he not accept their number, $4.5 billion, but he's happy to accept their recommendation not to proceed?
The Honourable Bill English.
Well, Mr Speaker, with respect to their number, as I understand it, that was based on what you call an accrual regime, which means that any uplift in value is taxed each year, regardless of whether you've sold the property or not. A realisation-based tax, which is when you pay when you've actually got the money, would realise quite a lot less money. And the group most harshly affected by the regime that the Labor Party are proposing are superannuitants who have low cash incomes but would have to come up with tax to pay accrued capital gains. The only saving grace is that in current conditions there's almost no capital gain, so they wouldn't have to pay, but it means the Labor Party will get no revenue from it.
Parliamentary.
Dr Russel Norman.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Why is he ignoring the advice of the OECD, Treasury, the IMF and the Savings Working Group that have all found that New Zealand is now an outlier in not having a comprehensive tax on capital gains, the absence of which seriously undermines government revenue and the competitiveness of our productive sector, which he has repeatedly said is central to his economic strategy?
The Honourable Bill English.
Well, Mr Speaker, I'm pleased to see the Greens are now starting to take notice of mainstream economic advice. And it's taken a while. I hadn't expected the Greens to be quoting the Treasury and the IMF at us, but there you go. As I said, Mr Speaker, we share their objectives, but we found different means of achieving them.
Question number 7, the Honourable David Parker.